I've been hearing for a while people expressing their fears and their worries and anxieties over the future and things like, oh no, we're heading into World War III. Oh, if you do this thing or don't do that thing, we're going to go into World War III. Look, I'm not scared about World War III, and you shouldn't be scared either, because here's the reality of the situation. We've already experienced World War III. A lot, in fact, during the 1990s. And here's the first one, WCW World War III from November 27th, 1995 at the Scope in Norfolk, Virginia. This show was nominated by Alex Fireheart over on patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret. This is only the third November pay-per-view that WCW had done up to this point, beginning with Starrcade 87, then the Battle Bowl pay-per-view in 1993. But this is a very exciting time in WCW right now. Nitro had only recently debuted a couple of months before this, and of course that's going to end up really altering the landscape of professional wrestling in America. The Monday Night War has begun between Raw and Nitro, and so it is a very exciting time for wrestling during this period. But yeah, we have seen Halloween Havoc, we have seen the Yeti, and so much stuff has been thrown up into the air ever since then, which we will get to as we talk about the world title situation. But there is a lot of interesting stuff happening in WCW around this time. The One-Man Gang and Hugh Morris are just some of the new members added to the Dungeon of Doom. Paul Orndorff had suffered an identity crisis but found himself once again thanks to Gary Spivey from the Psychic Friends Network. And of course, most importantly during this time, the Hulkster, Hulk Hogan, has embraced the dark side. He decided around the build for Halloween Havoc that, the best way to fight the darkness is to be the darkness, brother. And so he started wearing all black, and it led to this parade of some of the most bizarre promos like anyone has ever cut, especially Hulk Hogan. There's the one where he's dressed up as Zorro, demanding that Randy Savage bring the head of Ming on a silver platter. He and Savage are both Zorros at one point. Then there's this really weird one where they're out on Venice Beach cutting this promo while some big bearded guy you never see again is just rambling to no one while Hogan and Savage cut their promos, and there's all these confused onlookers in the background. It is truly some of the most just batshit stuff where I'm like, how is this selling pay-per-view buys? How is this moment of Savage and Hogan hanging out with like this one random dude who's babbling gibberish next to this Jimi Hendrix wannabe on the side playing guitar? Like, what does any of this have to do with the Dungeon of Doom or wrestling? 12,000 folks in the arena, about 90,000 pay-per-view buys. Tony Schiavone's calling the action alongside Bobby Heenan. The two are picking their winners. Tony says it's going to be Hogan. Heenan starts off by talking about Randy Savage before he changes his pick to the Giant mid-sentence. We toss over to Mean Gene Okerlund, who says it's time to fish or cut bait. He's at the promo zone with Randy Savage, Sting, and Hulk Hogan. Hogan says he took a walk through the dark side and now he's abandoning it. I like the fact that they frame the shot so it's like he's obviously wearing his red and yellow tights, and the live fans can see all this, by the way, but for the TV audience, he's got the black shirt on and the black bandana. So he takes it off and I got the shirt underneath, but you had the pants on as well. So unless there was somebody off camera like pulling down your black pants as well, I don't believe you were really embracing the dark side at the start of that promo, Hogan. It's almost like he thinks to himself, well, it turns out they're not caring for me as much no matter what I wear. So he throws the black colors into this waste bin, then it catches fire on its own. Hogan says he's gonna burn the Dungeon of Doom tonight, and he tells Sting, I wanna be your friend forever, dude. Savage apologizes for getting it all wrong about Sting. You're the coolest dude in the world, oh yeah. And then one of the more infamous moments of this entire show, Hogan produces a copy of The Dirt Sheets, brother. We were laughing in the back about the news that Macho's legitimate arm injury is actually legitimate. Observe this, brother. And he throws the dirt sheet into the flaming bin, and he says, the dirt sheet said the Giant was going to win the Battle Royal and that Savage was hurt. The internet has all the scoops, brother. I love that Hogan is this early adopter of the internet and the scoops that they bring as opposed to, I guess like the typed dirt sheets. Anyway, it's time for some wrestling now. We open up with a World TV title match as Johnny B. Bad defends against Diamond Dallas Page. Now seriously, I have got to do a better job of vetting these shows and just looking at the opening matches of these WCW shows so I don't fall into this trap again. Once again, we are opened up with a Johnny B. Bad and Diamond Dallas Page matchup. This war between the two has been raging for a long time, and now it's not only for the belt on the line, the Diamond Doll is also up for grabs. And Kimberly and DDP have started to have some storyline tension here. She's starting to stand up for herself more, and she calls out the fact that, oh, DDP doesn't really care about me, even though I've done so much for him, including polishing all his gaudy jewelry. So they're definitely teasing a split between these two, and now, of course, the Diamond Doll's services, the managerial services, are on the line. It's very much reminiscent to the Test Scott Steiner matchup I just covered at Bad Blood 2003, only without the heel calling the lady a whore. DDP had also stolen Johnny B. Bad's Bad Blaster at one point, but Johnny responds in his intro with Arm Pyro. The action is fast and furious to start things off. Bad throws Page out of the ring and follows up with a dive. DDP, using the Diamond Doll as a human shield, helps him take over. He's calling for the numbers, the 10+ card, but the Diamond Doll is having none of it. Johnny slowly but surely fighting back. DDP tries to hit a spinning clothesline, but Bad ducks it, lays DDP out instead. The Diamond Doll gives Johnny a 10+. Page putting the knees up on a vaulting attack, hits a big old gut buster. Bad reverses a tombstone with one of his own. Johnny hits the Bad mood, that big planche out of the outside, kind of a rough landing on his right leg though. Bad follows up with this over-the-top rope leg drop, the cover, and the win. He has retained the title and has now gained the Diamond Doll. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. You know, I've made jokes about the repetitive nature. We've all made jokes at this point about the repetitive nature of Johnny B. Bad in an opening matchup. But I think, that doesn't discount the fact that it's still a really exciting matchup. These two do have good chemistry together, and I think seeing Johnny B. Bad in his athletic prime and pulling off all these flying moves for a man of his size is always so fun to watch. So yeah, the match, we've seen it before, but I think the story helped kind of evolve to the point where it got more interesting. It's not old yet, at least in my kind of on the outside looking in kind of perspective. But yeah, I think it's still, there's a reason. I've said this before. There's a reason that Johnny B. Bad was always in the opening act, because one, he was like this interesting person you can't look away from. He had a really good charisma about him, and the guy could work and fly around and excite the crowd. On the stage, Mean Gene plugging the hotline to spill some late-breaking tea about the WWF steroid scandal. Then he brings in Johnny B. Bad and the now smiling Diamond Doll. Bad says that was no way for Page to treat a lady, and he's all about giving the Diamond Doll respect. He tells the doll that she could manage him, but tells her to do what she wants to do, to achieve your dreams and reach your goals. Man, it's crazy to think that in 1995, Mark Merrow already had the makings of a great motivational speaker. Up next, a taped fist challenge as Big Bubba Rogers takes on Hacksaw Jim Duggan. These two have been warring for a little while now, costing each other their matches, and the taped fist gets involved at one point, and that's what brings us to the taped fist challenge. And Duggan claims he comes from a long line of taped fist champions. So much so, there's even a point where he returns to his ancestral home of Ireland to, I guess, visit his ancestors and learn more about their rich taped fistery. Duggan runs in and spoils Big Bubba's entrance. Duggan not wearing taped fists, he has taped gauntlets. It's all the way up to his elbows. It's ridiculous. Bobby Heenan at one point on commentary suggesting that Duggan is smuggling stuff in his tape, like metal or sand. I'm like, sand? Is that something that the heels actually would do back then? The metal I can understand one thing, because you can slip a lead pipe or some foreign object in the tape. But who's grabbing sand from the Virginia coast and going stuff it in my tape? That would just be really abrasive, and I wouldn't like that at all. Multiple clotheslines sending Bubba out of the ring. They even move to a different ring in this one. There's a moment where Duggan catches Bubba's head between two posts. I don't know why that spot made me cringe so much at first. Bubs takes over after Duggs falls onto the barricade. A lot of big shots connecting. Bubba grabs even more tape and wraps his hand up some more. Continuing to move from ring to ring, Bubba tries to tape Duggan to the top rope, gets some more free shots right to the mush. Bubba comes running at him. Duggan just puts his fist first up, and like a cartoon character, Bubba runs into it and bumps. That was amazing. He gets dumped outside, hits the corner of the apron hard. Big body slam by the Hacker, as Shivani calls him, and when I heard that, I just went into this whole thing of, oh my god, like what if in the 90s they tried to like modernize Duggan's gimmick, kind of like the LOD 2000? What if Hacksaw Jim Duggan became the Hacker and he was trying to break into mainframes and stuff? Suddenly, VK Wall Street, that's the former IRS, sneaks up to the ring with a chain wrapped around his fist, but the Hacker sees it coming. Bubba's got VK's chain now and uppercuts Jim Duggan with it. Duggan cannot answer the 10 count, and Bubba wins, and he yells, "Tell him how great I am, Bobby! Tell him how great I am!" I give it 2 stars out of 5. You know, this match was mostly punches, since that was kind of what the stipulation encouraged. So it was kind of a little one note on that. But hey, I got to give extra points for that comeback of Duggan just putting the fist up and like just Wile E. Coyote style. Bubba runs into it and takes a bump. That was probably one of my favorite spots of the night, just on pure silliness. Gene Okerlund's on the stage with Nature Boy Ric Flair, and Gino says the Stinger wants revenge. Flair says, well, if the whole wrestling world knows, Sting, the Nature Boy, woo, is gonna style and profile. And for that little incident on TNT where you almost ended my career, the Great One is back one more time. Because whether you like it or you don't, it just happens to be the best going today. Don't you understand it? This has been my master plan. I've got Hogan, Savage, Sting, Luger in the same building, under the same roof, at the same time. And just like how Dr. J ruled the scope, the Nature Boy will rule WCW again. Boy, when I wrote it out like that and just delivered it to you, it makes you realize a lot of wrestling promos feature guys just talking a lot without really saying anything. Time now for what's being billed as tag team action, featuring the women wrestlers from Japan, as Cutie Suzuki and Mayumi Ozaki take on Bull Nakano and Akira Hokuto, who are accompanied by Sonny Ono. And if there's a match with international wrestlers involved, you just know they're going to bring out Mike Tenay to the commentary booth and provide some much needed context and exposition. He actually explains this is an intra-promotional matchup here, as you got All Japan versus JWP. Heenan on commentary saying Bull Nakano could wear Abe Lincoln's hat. Nakano and Hokuto are on the attack from the get-go here, and Mayumi taking a lot of the heat in this matchup. Akira is mocking Ozaki, putting her hand just within reach of her partner. We get the double bites, more double teaming by the baddies, as Cutie Suzuki can only watch in the corner. Ozaki with some last-minute counters, tags in Suzuki. We get this nice double submission in the ring. Nakano fights back. She goes for a moonsault but misses it, then stomps on stomps on stomps, but Bull still kicks out. Lots of fun offense here. All the ladies just going full bore in this match, trading pinfalls. Ozaki takes one of the damnedest German suplexes I've ever seen. Holy crap. Hokuto hits a double dropkick on her opponent, a diving senton off the top on the outside. The baddies hit the Doomsday device, but the pin is broken up. Nakano hits the top rope leg drop on Suzuki for the win. I'm going to give it 4 stars out of 5. It's my favorite matchup of the night just because of how refreshing and different it is compared to almost everything on this show. And it's when you realize that in 95, women's wrestling in America is just so vastly different than what they're doing in Japan. Japan is miles ahead in terms of action. And so when you've got these ladies coming in to really almost no reaction from the crowd, and you've got the crowd then kind of hanging on everything they're doing by the end, then you know they're doing something right. And, you know, at this point in WCW's history, the Cruiserweight division, it's not there yet. It hasn't captured the minds of the wrestling fans yet. So in terms of that, if you don't have the Cruiserweights yet, you bring in the Joshis, you bring in the Japanese wrestlers to an American crowd, and you're going to wow some people. We then see Jimmy Hart and Lex Luger on the stage with MGO. Jimmy says Lex Luger has what it takes to win the world title in that 60-man battle royal tonight. Lex has some words for his opponent tonight. Randy Savage says he's looking at the present and future of WCW. Meanwhile, he's cutting his promo, just looking down somewhere. Is there a camera we never cut to he's looking at? Or cue cards, maybe? We continue the Japanese influence of the show with our next matchup featuring the new U.S. champion, Kensuke Sasaki. He actually beat Sting a little more than a week before this overseas at a New Japan event. And in his first offense here, he's taking on one of the newest members of the Four Horsemen in Chris Benoit. It starts out fairly evenly matched. We have some nice nice graps. Sasaki eventually just powers out, shows off the strength, picking up and throwing Benoit down with ease. Benoit with a big dive to the outside, almost hits the barricade with his face. Sonny Ono has joined the announce team. It's worth pointing out, by the way, there is a bit of a B plot happening within this matchup because Bobby Heenan has been seen on TV kind of courting these Japanese businessmen during the shows. They're eating like sushi on this big, banquet table as the live shows are going on. And it turns out it's this deal for this Japanese contingent to purchase half of WCW Saturday Night. And that's how we get more of the Japanese wrestlers coming on the show. And so Sonny Ono has joined the announce team for this matchup here. And then Tony Schiavone asking him, how much money is Bobby Heenan on the hook for when this plan inevitably falls through? And Ono says they're going to, quote, work out a deal with Starrcade. That's alluding to what's going to be the WCW versus New Japan World Cup next month. Another pair of tombstone attempts on the night. Benoit hits the flying headbutt. Sasaki catches a big boot and hits this massive powerbomb, follows up with a Northern Lights bomb, driving Benoit down to win and retain the title. I give this one 3.5 stars out of 5. I think it was a really strong matchup as well. I am going to give the edge, though, to the women's tag match, mostly because of the novelty of it, but I think this is still a very physical match. I like the high impact of it. I like the technical flavor as well. I mean, these two worked very well together. So, for a match trying to get Sasaki over as this big, powerful dude, going with Benoit as the opponent, somebody who can work well with a lot of different people and who's familiar with that Japanese style, is a pretty good call. We go back to Mean Gene with the DOD, the Taskmaster, Jimmy Hart, and the Giant, who Mean Gene says, your father would be ashamed of you. Sullivan says the Dungeon of Doom will take no prisoners. He calls the Giant the uncrowned champion, soon starts getting drowned out by Hogan chants, so it turns out Hulkamania not quite dead yet. Jimmy Hart saying, the only one deserving of the red and yellow is the Taskmaster, baby. Giant tells Hogan he's gonna throw him over the top rope, and he wraps it up with, roses are red, violets are blue. I'm gonna kick your butt to Kalamazoo. You understand? I'm a giant. Oh man, I forgot that this is during the time period where the Giant would actually do some fee-fi-fo-fum giant rants that rhymed. Man, how come that never stuck around when he went to the WWF? It's also hilarious to watch the managers doing the Hogan ear cup during this promo here. At one point on TV, Sullivan had this moment where he has this like seizure or out-of-body experience as the Giant's cutting the promo, and you see him on the floor like, twitching but still going like this with the ear, and I thought was like the funniest thing possible. Tony plugging Starrcade for next month on a Wednesday, not a Sunday. Then we go to our next matchup here. It's grudge match time. Randy Savage taking on Lex Luger. From day one of Luger's arrival on the very first Nitro, Savage never trusted the total package, and a lot of this kind of discontent and this tension was really fermenting for the last couple of months here. Things have come to blows. They've led to a match on Nitro. The Giant helped Luger win. Then Luger officially joined the Dungeon of Doom at Halloween Havoc, and then recently on Nitro, Luger attacked Savage's arm and put him in a sling. By the way, I feel like Luger in the Dungeon of Doom, even as kind of like a satellite member, never sat well with me, because I'm like, look at the makeup of the Dungeon of Doom, like literally the makeup, because like half the people in the group are wearing like face paint, and they're all these goofy, exaggerated gimmicks and everything, this outlandish, larger than life. And then you have Lex Luger, who is literally a large man. He's very, very muscular and everything, but like he's too normal of a character to fit in with the Dungeon of Doom. Like, what is he doing aligning himself with the friggin' Zodiac and the Shark and all these weirdos? Before the matchup, Macho Man joining Mean Gene on the stage, and he says, what it is what it is. It's my personality to be jittery. It's part of my charm. And Gene asks, how could you do this match with a bum arm? And Savage goes, I would say I am 1,000,000%. That is better than 100%. 1,000,000%. And now I realize watching this promo, because like the phrase 1,000,000%, like I've heard that. I had like a Macho Man soundboard on my phone many years ago, and I would play that. I always loved the 1,000,000% soundbite, and now I realize it actually came from this promo, as is the it's my personality to be jittery, it's part of my charm. That's a great line. Savage on the attack from the start. Heenan asks if his arm is 1,000,000%, why is it wrapped in bandages? And he says, I can smell his healing balm from here. Savage does hit the flying elbow in mere minutes, but Jimmy Hart has the referee distracted.
Lex Luger and Sting are going to be a tag team on Nitro.
They have always been close friends, and they've agreed to.
But I didn't know they were going to be in a tag match tomorrow.
Do I got to explain to you everything?
Yes, if you keep things from me.
Fighting on the outside, Luger gets Macho in the torture rack for several seconds. Luger bringing Savage back into the ring and applies a big armbar, just holds on forever until the referee calls the match. Luger will not let go of the hold. Savage does not give up. Sting runs in, and we get this kind of mirror moment to what happened on Nitro a couple weeks before, because Sting and Flair were voted in by the fans to wrestle in a main event of Nitro a few weeks ago, and it ends with Sting putting the Scorpion Deathlock on Flair after the match is over and just refusing to let go for the longest time. That was the thing that Flair was referring to when Sting tried to end his career. And it ends with Luger getting in the ring and like saying something to Sting, and Sting just gets up and they walk away together. Very similar vibe here, where Sting shows up, whispers to Luger, and that leads to him letting go, and they walk away again. 1.5 stars is what I'm giving this matchup here. It was pretty short and sweet. I think it is the shortest match on this card, but you also realize Savage is working with a legitimate hurt arm in this matchup here, and he also is working the Battle Royal later on, and so they probably want to preserve him a little bit. And man, the story here, I forget how this turns out with Sting and Luger and the whole are they friends, are they foes, and where that's going to lead with Luger and everything, but it is very interesting, that storyline. I am definitely intrigued. And speaking of Sting, he's got a grudge match here against the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. At Halloween Havoc, Flair pulled off his most masterful turn on Sting and reformed the Four Horsemen. Big Easter vibes from the color of these guys' gear tonight. Flair immediately powders and runs to the other ring to style and profile, Sting following after him. Commentary with one of the weirdest lines of the night, Heenan saying that Flair's back has got to feel like applesauce, which nah. Sting and Flair do all their moves. Flair rolls into the third ring. Meanwhile, we cut to the stage and we see Sister Sherry and Colonel Parker looking on, watching the match while also canoodling. Just some more of that classic Flair-Sting business. Sting with the no-sell, Flair bopping around for him like a madman. The old reliable splash into the barricade by the Stinger. Sting gets to throttling, but Flair responds with a big low blow. Heenan calls it an involuntary twitch as Flair starts working the leg. He gets the figure 4 locked in, but Sting reverses it. Flair's feeling himself here, but Sting stings up. He beals Flair off the top rope, and it's all him from here. He hits the superplex, the Scorpion Deathlock, crowd going nuts for that. Flair gives up, and Sting wins. I'm going to give it 3.5 stars out of 5. You know, this match is really, if you've seen one Flair-Sting match, you've kind of seen them all, but the thing is, they're always really entertaining because they have such a great energy about the two of them. They have a great chemistry, and their styles mesh so well together, and they always just bring that intensity and that quickness. The only thing that we saw in this matchup that was truly different, I think, was like when they were going from ring to ring and doing their shtick there, because that added a little wrinkle of fun to it. But yeah, another great match in the vast collection of great Sting and Flair matches, but again, nothing you haven't seen before. It's time for your main event, the first ever World War III Battle Royal for the WCW Championship. 3 rings, 60 men, something on that scale, never been done before. WCW, they played around with 2 rings for a long time with War Games, obviously, but this is the first time they've really gone for the 3-ring circus here, literally. And this is a match that was originally going to be for a chance, a shot at the WCW title at Starrcade, but now this has turned into a full-on championship matchup here. Any of these 60 men could become the new champion. It all began back at Halloween Havoc, that main event with Hulk Hogan and the Giant. As you all remember, the Giant and the Yeti double team Hogan in the sexiest of ways as the match turns into a DQ finish. Jimmy Hart, Hogan's manager at the time, says that he wrote the contract that said if Hogan lost by DQ, he would lose the championship. So it was all part of an elaborate plan to get the belt off of Hogan and onto the Giant. And so they're gloating about that for a couple of weeks, but then a WCW attorney declares they will not recognize the Giant as the champion. The belt has been held up, and the winner of the Battle Royal will now win the title outright. And another thing they're doing to advertise for this matchup, they're saying 3 rings, 3 giants, and they say, okay, our giants are going to be the Yeti, the Giant, and then Hulk Hogan, because he's not like a literal giant compared to them, but he is more of the figurative giant, the legendary giant. And I'm like, that's fucking cheating. Speaking of which, Hogan comes out for his second live promo of the night, and now he's getting booed. Well, which is it, Norfolk? Hogan says he's going to get into the ring, regain the world title, and hold on to it forever and a day for the Hulkamaniacs. Hogan putting the match over as very dangerous, but says that in one night he has a chance to prove that Hulkamania is the ultimate power in the universe. And he wraps it up by saying, "The Maniacs are running wild, dude." Boo! The crowd boos him again. Again, I'm so confused by this up and down reaction for Hogan. They liked it when he tore off the black. They were chanting his name during the Dungeon of Doom promo. They're booing him when he's here. And speaking of confusion, we now have 3 broadcast teams for this main event. Not only do we have Schiavone and Heenan, we now have Eric Bischoff and Dusty Rhodes at Ring 2, and Chris Cruz and Larry Zbyszko at Ring 3. Let's bring out all the boys. I'm putting their names right here on the screen because I'm not going to say them all. Also, it's worth pointing out that the Yeti does come out here, but he's not dressed in the mummy wrap anymore. He is the Super Giant Ninja, which he makes him look like a Power Rangers character, honestly, and this wouldn't last any longer either. Michael Buffer in the ring making the introductions, and the best part of this is Steven Regal behind him looking around all the people. He's just getting terrified, making these faces, really making the most of his minutes here in this moment. The match begins and we get the triple split screen. It is total chaos watching this thing. Super Giant Ninja is taken out almost immediately, but the cameras miss it. Everyone is screaming on commentary as they toss back and forth to each other during this very messy battle royal. Poor Chris Cruz and Larry Zbyszko are ignored for the longest time in this matchup. We do see Benoit and Pillman, 2 of the Horsemen, working together. More and more guys start to get eliminated. Hogan fighting off a bunch of guys in the corner. Meanwhile, Anderson and Luger are fighting on the outside. They're working smart. Ring number 2 is thinned out to the point where they join Ring 1. VK Wall Street eliminates himself. Ring 3 empties out, and now Ring 1 is just very packed. More Dungeon of Doom beatdown on the Hulkster. We see Duggan and Bubba fighting again. At one point, Scott Armstrong is taken out on a stretcher. Eddie Guerrero on the top rope for a very long time before he jumps off and lands on Arn. Savage and Luger continue to fight each other. We see Bubba and Duggan eliminate each other. Diamond Dallas Page and Johnny B. Bad go out at the same time too. The one-man gang eliminates the Man Called Mean. The Zodiac's taken out. Then out goes Hugh Morris. Sting splashing the Giant and Eddie in the corner. I thought that was going to be Eddie's elimination there for a second. Guys are trying to navigate the ring, trying to figure out where to run and bump. I mean, it's chaos, truly. I do love this elimination though. Sting slingshots Arn into the corner Flair's standing on. Flair falls out, and then Arn not long after. Luger and Sting work together to eliminate the Giant, but then Hogan takes all 3 of them out. Savage eliminates the one-man gang. Giant pulls Hogan out of the ring, but the referee doesn't catch it. Savage is declared the last man in the ring, and he wins the world title. And so Hogan is incensed. He tries to plead his case. He kind of kicks the bottom rope, and he cups the hand, and they go, "Oh, didn't you guys see me get pulled out?" And so many fans are saying, "No, boo you, nuts to this. We've picked our guy," and it's Savage. But even though, Savage, I think, also gets booed at one point during the celebration, either that or I'm reading into it wrong, and if it's the case that they are booing him as well, then I don't know what the motivations are of the crowd at the Scope this evening. But man, don't you hate it when the heel commentator is right? When Bobby Heenan calls out Hogan for being like a whiner and a crier and a complainer. Savage says that he values Hogan's opinion and he didn't see what happened, but he lives by what it is what it is. Savage saying this was always his dream, but if there's a dark cloud over this moment, then that's not cool. Hogan says tomorrow night on Nitro, they're gonna talk turkey, dude. Savage and Hogan wind up shaking hands and hugging it out as Heenan and Schiavone wrap the show up.
We'll be wrestling live as well as we come to you 9 o'clock Eastern Time.
Hey,
live.
they got champagne back there.
I give it 2 stars out of 5. You know, I think that wrestling matches are kind of like Mexican food, where if you just take the same ingredients and you put them in different orders, you get different results. That's kind of what the World War III Battle Royal is to me. Because, you know, it's all about trying to make things different and exciting. How are you going to put a new spin on a match concept people have known about for a very long time? I like the idea of a 3-ring Battle Royal with all these people involved, and also the added stakes of it being for the world title on this night was fun as well. But in the end, it's still just a very busy, chaotic battle royal with a lot of names who you know full well ain't getting involved in anything further down. They're not going to win any championships. Like, they are non-factors and everything. So yeah, just kind of like a messy main event, but still fun because, again, of the novel nature of it being, oh my God, this many people in a main event. That's ridiculous. That's crazy. But man, I just, it's frustrating to see that Macho Man, both of his first world title wins in WWF and in WCW, have this like dark cloud of Hogan being involved in it. We saw it at WrestleMania 4. We see it again on this show. And I get Hogan's story. Like, I see what they're doing with his story, and I get it. It gives him an out, and furthering this feud with the Dungeon of Doom and whatnot. Just saying, as somebody who is a fan of Savage's, it's disappointing to see that his first title win here has that asterisk with it, kind of similar to the Giant's first world title win in WCW. Because, like, he is technically recognized as the champion back then, but, like, also not. And so it's kind of this gray area over the DQ finish and everything. And it's very interesting. The common denominator between Savage and Giant in this instance is Hulk Hogan. But this storyline, with this whole like incident with Savage and Hogan fighting over the technicality of the Battle Royal, it's not going to be carried over into Starrcade because we have that World Cup angle to get over instead, and Savage ends up losing the title to Ric Flair. That said, my grade for WCW World War III 1995 is a B. It's a really solid show, this. I think a lot of the undercard was really good, like DDP and Bad, Benoit and Sasaki. The women's tag match was like a breath of fresh air. And then you got Flair and Sting. You can't really go wrong with that. And again, even though you can't really glam up a battle royal that much, what they did for this main event I thought was, again, it was novel, it was unique, it was a little bit different. I did like seeing a lot of the storylines, some of what you saw on the undercard for this show, kind of further happen and converge, and like all this crisscrossing of the storylines happening in that battle royal as well. So that was pretty neat. So for a maiden voyage for World War III, it's really not all that bad, and this show would continue on for the next several years. But what did you think of World War III, and how about this review? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, hit that bell icon for all the notifications. Well, next time here on the Classic Review, we are jumping 10 years into the future from now, from 1995. We are going to look at WWE Vengeance 2005. This is one of my most requested classic shows I've gotten over the years, and there's a lot of fun on this. There's John Cena defending the WWE title against Chris Jericho and Christian, and of course you've got that big heck in a sec match, the blow-off, Triple H versus Batista, and a whole lot more. Your Thanksgiving week is going to be just jam-packed. You'll be eating good with Vengeance 2005. But until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.